the great thing about basketball is that there's no one right way, and I think you've heard during the course of the weekend different coaches and people talk about the game and have perhaps different viewpoints on how to teach it, how to coach it. And that's all good. That's okay, because there's nothing new under the sun. The game was created a long time ago, and I think all of us are participants in that growth of the game, because we've learned from other people and other places and other cultures and other styles and other philosophies. And while perhaps we didn't invent the wheel or even reinvent the wheel, we used all of those things that we've learned to create our way of doing it. And, at the end of the day, what works for you is the best way. So I'm happy to give you my viewpoint and some of my ideas, and I hope in some way that they can help you. As Senator mentioned, when I'm finished, I hope that I can answer any questions for you, and feel free to share your ideas with me. I'm still in the learning phase of my career and my life, so I'm always happy to kick it around with other people and other coaches. I wanted to talk to you today about building winning teams. The great American football coach, Vince Lombardi, said that winning is a habit. Unfortunately, so is losing. Generally, things don't just happen. They happen for a reason. And I hope that some of the ideas that I have for you will give you the basis and the background from my career that helped me to have great success building teams in many, many different countries and cultures and places and languages. And if you can incorporate that into your way of doing things, that would be terrific. Okay, so I want to put our first slide on the screen here. No, so that's the second one. Let's go to the first one.
Sorry, Coach, you want with the Nick's background,
yeah.
Correct?
Yes, exactly.
Gotcha.
There's a good lesson for you right off the bat, folks, is that things don't always go as planned. There's no man plans and God laughs sometimes. That's the reality of the situation, and how willing and able you are to adjust and to adapt. That a lot of times determines your ability to be successful. So I don't see the first slide. There it is. Great. So I've produced a schematic here for you, which I want to talk to and give you my philosophies on, and tell you a few stories that I've always sort of carried with me to help me to have confidence in what it is that I'm doing and in what I'm talking about. I've always believed that above and beyond everything else, your ability to build a successful and a sustainable team starts with character. I'll tell you a true story, something that happened to me many years ago out of my near 30 years of coaching at the highest level. The one and only season that I didn't start the year with the team, I was fortunate that the San Antonio Spurs knew of my situation and invited me to their preseason training camp. Now, that was a wonderful, wonderful thing that they did and a wonderful opportunity. But the Spurs were very smart because they did that with a few different people over the years. And the reason was, number one, was to help out other coaches, which is great. But the second reason was that while you were there, they were going to pick your brain about different ways of doing things so as to enhance their program, which is terrific and was terrific. So I had the opportunity to go and to spend time on a daily basis with their people and with their staff. And at a certain point, because I was a European head coach, and generally in Europe, the head coach does most of the player personnel, makes most of the player personnel decisions. I took that opportunity to individually ask 3 different people in the organization the same question. And I was lucky that I was able to talk with the great Greg Popovich, who was obviously the head coach at the time. I also spoke with R.C. Buford, who was the general manager and still is to this day, and one of the more famous administrators in the world of basketball. And another young gentleman by the name of Brian Paugo, who was the head of the director of player personnel. And while sitting individually with each one, I asked the same question. I said, when you pick a player to draft or to trade for, or to sign in free agency, what is the thing that you're looking for? And I expected to hear all different kinds of answers. You know, I thought maybe one would say size and length. I thought another one would say shooting and passing ability. I thought another might say experience or winning way. And to my surprise, and again, separately, each one of them told me the same thing, one word. To my question, what is it that you look for in a player? And they said character, above and beyond all things. Now, not surprising, that's a team that was a 20-year playoff team and won 5 championships and played some of the best basketball that we've seen in the world of the NBA or worldwide. And it always stuck with me, and I thought that was just fascinating. You know, I believe that talent without character is a curse. What stops talent is lack of character. And, you know, I think it's so important that you're looking for players that have that element. I'll take even another step further into my own history, my own personal life. You know, when I was a young boy, my dad, unfortunately, left home. And when he was leaving, he said, son, now I was 7 years old at the time. He said, son, you have to be the mensch of the family. Now, mensch is a word in Yiddish. And at the time, and for many years, I thought that word meant to be a man, to be strong, to be powerful. And it was only a little bit later in my life that I came to realize the true meaning of that word, that it wasn't to be manly only. The word actually can apply to anyone, man, male, female, makes no difference. The word mensch means to be a person of character and integrity, which is a lot more important and a lot deeper than just being macho or just being strong or however you wanted to define that. That's something that always stayed with me when I considered what kind of player and what kind of person I wanted to bring to my or to our organization. The second thing, which I also think cannot in any way be underestimated, as none of these things can be, because it is, of course, it's a school of thought, and it's a combination of things that allows you to dream about being a successful team and a sustainable one. The second thing is quality. And when I talk about quality, obviously talent is the first thing that comes to mind. You want to bring people in that have talent, but quality for me is a lot deeper than that, a lot more involved than that. And I had the opportunity some years ago to talk to Canadian basketball coaches back in 2016 in Toronto, and really had a wonderful experience and learned a great deal, because I went to see every lecture and listened to every one of the different exhibitions that they provided there. And I learned a lot. It was a wonderful experience. And I had the opportunity to hear a online clinic while I was there, that was given by a gentleman by the name of Dr. Peter Jensen, who probably is very familiar to all of you. At the time, he was not familiar to me, but I really learned a great deal and felt so fortunate to hear him define what a commitment to excellence is all about. And it sort of gave justification to what I've long believed, that comes from a quote by the great USA basketball college coach John Wooden, who said, "It's what you learn after you already know everything that counts." And I learned something that day. This is after having coached for 25 years or so, that I'll never forget. And one of the things that the doctor talked about was, the person's or the player's willingness to do everything that they can do with a true level of commitment. And then, regardless of the outcome, you don't need to feel disappointed. As coaches, your mind and your thoughts are so often only about winning, that you forget that what you need to do in order to have the right to win is the thing that you should never disappoint yourself or be disappointed by. When you come to the start of the season, as I've done many times in the bigger clubs that I've worked in, you talk about goal setting. We want to win the championship, or we want to win the cup, or I want to win an Olympic medal, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong. That's normal. People will tell you, and I've long believed, that you got to set goals, and I get that. But the thing about goal setting is, a lot of times when you set a particular goal and you don't reach it, you feel bad. And what Dr. Jensen was talking about, and what I've taught ever since, is it's okay to be sad when you don't reach a particular goal. If you've given everything that you possibly could and truly committed to excellence on a daily basis, sadness is okay. What you don't ever have to feel is disappointed. And I think there's such a value to that, such a calming influence to that way of thinking, that you never can get too down when you've done your best in the truest sense of the word. And I really believe that after many years not having understood that, I became a much better coach in understanding that, and certainly was a happier man. the great story of the stonecutter whose job was to split the rock, and upon coming to the rock, hit time after time with his hammer 50, 75, 100 times, and nothing happened, not even a scratch, not even a crack. And on the 101st time that he struck that rock, the rock split in two. But it wasn't the 100 times that went before. It wasn't the 101st time that broke the rock. It was the 100 times that went before that helped him to achieve his goal. And I think that's so important in understanding the type of quality that you have to have, the type of never give up attitude that you need, the type of commitment to excellence that is so critical in allowing you to be at peace with yourself when you're going about building a successful and a sustainable unit. I had many times during the course of my career where I would be coaching players who because of great ability, maybe would do the minimum of the maximum when they were getting ready for the game or for the season. I had other guys who did the maximum of the minimum when it came time for their process. But very few people and very few players do the maximum of the maximum. And that's the kind of quality that you're looking for in your players, in the people in your organization, because that is what will carry you, particularly in the tough times. And believe me, coaches, the tough times are a big part of our business. And many of you already know that. But how you deal with those tough times through your commitment to excellence, I think, is what carries the day. The third thing is continuity. In building a successful organization and building a successful program, it's so important that you are consistent in your messaging, that you're not talking a different game every day, that you have the type of, or promoting the types of habits and processes that allow people to be comfortable. And those messages are the same messages that you're giving from day one to the middle of the year to the end of the year, or more important, that you're giving year after year. There's a continuity of that messaging that really carries the day. It's so important that you can find ways to keep groups together, to keep teams together. Now, maybe at the higher levels where I was coaching, and it's a matter of contracts and things like that. You probably have a little bit of an advantage that you can keep your core group together via the business side of things, or you should try to. But sometimes, if you're coaching youth basketball and you may only have a year or two in a particular age group, again, you want to try to keep, at least for that short period of time, the players together by providing them with great development, with great purpose in how you go about your day to day. And this will, keep them coming back, of course, and also help them to build a sort of confidence that they need, that they're going to be better going out than they were coming in. Continuity is a lot about loyalty. You may not always have the best talent. You may not always have the biggest and brightest stars, but if you show loyalty to your people, and I'm talking about the people on your team, I'm talking about your staff, I'm talking about the people that work from an administrative standpoint, I'm talking about the people that are support members of the organization, whether it's doctors or whether it's physios or managers, you got to show loyalty to these people, because that helps you develop the sort of continuity that you need so critically in your program. You have to understand, again, specific to players, that players aren't all the same, and they can't be, because just like people, players are going to be different. But the important thing is that you have a consistent set of expectations, emphasis on being accountable, of being responsible, because that creates the sort of continuity in the way that you're doing things that really gives you the opportunity to get better, to move forward, and to encourage those in the organizations. It's real important that you work hard to promote the advancement of your players, of your staff, of the people that are working in your organization. And you got to, I think the way to do that is by giving value to all in whatever it is that they're doing. I've long believed, and I can think of a great quote for that. Not everything that can be counted counts. And not everything that counts can be counted. And I think that ability on your part to give value to all in the organization really develops the sort of continuity that you're looking for. I know from my perspective, I can tell you that my greatest sense of accomplishment has not been all of the championships that I've been part of, or the Olympic medals, or all of the national team achievements. It hasn't been that. People always ask me, what was your greatest achievement in your career? And I say, it's not one thing. It's not one thing at all. The thing that always did it for me was the fact that over 90% of my assistant coaches became head coaches, or have become head coaches and are to this day. And the fact that so many of the players that I've worked with have gone on to have bigger and better careers than they did even when I had them. And so many of them were great, but most of them improved and developed and move forward as players and as people. And those are the things that long term have always stuck with me. And again, I think that's very much relevant to people that are coaching the younger guys and gals. When you see that you've helped a person to find the best version of themselves and to move forward in their career as players and as people, I don't think there's any greater satisfaction than that. I really don't. And I know I've been blessed with seeing so many people go on to bigger and better things, and I always remember that. Now coaching, because specifically, I know I'm talking to a great number of coaches, and I'm sure this is very important and relevant, as all these things are to you. For me, coaching is about 5 pillars. Okay. The first thing that you got to do, and this is what you're doing right now, and I salute each and every one of you. Okay. You got to know the material in order to get the sort of credibility that you need as a coach. Players and the people that are working for you, they have to believe that you know what the heck you're talking about. That doesn't necessarily mean they always have to agree with you, but they do have to believe that you're a person of substance who has done his work or his homework and is able to take the material that he knows and to pass it on in a palatable and in a way that's understandable. And that knowing that material comes, number one, from studying, which you're doing right now, from learning, which you're doing and have been doing all weekend, from listening. You know, it's awfully hard to learn things when you're talking. It's a lot easier to learn things when you're listening, and that's critical, obviously, in promoting your own education in this world of basketball. You have to be able to evaluate, to see things, to understand things, to improve things, and that comes from evaluation or self-criticism or just trying to be better. You certainly have to be able and be willing to adapt, because not everything works out just the way that we want it to. Again, you have to go back and you have to reevaluate. Sometimes, you try to fix something and it doesn't work. So you got to reevaluate again. I really believe in this particular philosophy when you're faced with difficulties of you asking yourself three questions. What happened? Because you got to know what happened. All right. Why did it happen? You got to find out the reasons. And number three, how do we fix it? I always, after games, sit down or would sit down with my coaching staff. And the first thing I would ask them was, did we deserve to win? Now, this was in games that went our way and also games that didn't go our way. And that self-evaluation, which started immediately, was the thing that always helped us to prepare the next day, to put ourselves in a position to improve. I as many do nowadays, of course, self-scout and scouting in general is such a big part of what we do, as is analytics, data analytics, things like that, and different sorts of evaluations that we do for players, or statistical input that we get from what we did during the course of the game. That stuff is so important. And believe me, coaches, you probably learn more from losing than you do from winning, or at least you're more aware to it, more attuned to what it is you have to make better. But that's a big part of coaching. The second thing is you have to have a philosophy. Now I'm going to talk to you about coaching philosophy from two perspectives. And as I told you before, as you're listening to different coaches talk about different subjects, some the same, nobody's right and nobody's wrong. Everybody has their own way of doing things, but it's really critical that you do have your own way. Don't try and copy somebody else, because players, they're like kids. Kids are due to their youth, they're pure. They haven't really figured out the ways to work around things, or to cut corners, or even to cheat. They're for the most part a lot more honest in the way that they see things. It's really important that when you're talking to people, you're talking as yourself, not talking as Pop or as Doc or as Nick or anybody else. You need to be yourself, because that's what people, just like that's what kids will respond to. They will respond to the truth. That's that's critical. So I think that basically there are two types of coaches. There are system coaches and there are personnel coaches. Now, a system coach has his way of playing, his particular philosophy, offensively and defensively, and no matter where he coaches, he's going to bring that system with him because that's what he believes he can coach the best, and that maybe is the style that he believes in. The other school of coaching is what I call personnel coaches. In other words, a coach that has players with a particular set of skill sets, or brings maybe different players that offer him more talent or quality or whatever. And he coaches according to their skill sets. So he won't play the same way that maybe he did the year before. He won't use the same type of offense, or he won't utilize the same defensive schemes. He'll coach to the strength of his players. Now, once again, I tell you that neither of these two philosophies is more right than the other one. You know, it really is it's really about what works for you, and in what way you can pass this on to your players. That's important. You know, I can tell you basically the one thing that I always went with that was the same for every team was a general philosophy that we were going to do four things. We were going to play hard. We were going to play together. We were going to play to win. And we were going to have fun. Now, my players, any one of them that has ever played for me, if you were to ask them that question, they will tell you that's the first thing that the coach ever said to us. Because that's what I believed in from a philosophical standpoint that never changed. A lot of people, when they hear the last part of that, have fun, you know, they raise their eyebrows. I'll tell you a true story. In the beginning of my career, I used to come to the mid-court with everybody standing around, and I used to try and quote Sophocles, who once said, "A truly happy man is he who manages to turn his job into his hobby." I had a great player by the name of Anthony Parker. Some of you should know that name since he played very successfully and in a wonderful way for the Toronto Raptors for some years. But he also played, I brought him to Europe originally to play for Maccabi Tel Aviv, where he became, in my mind, one of the truly greatest foreign players ever to play in the European environment. And after having said that one year, Anthony tapped me on the shoulder and sort of whispered in my ear. He said, "Coach, you got to know your audience." I said, "Geez, Anthony, what do you mean?" And he said, "You know, that's a little bit too much for these guys. If you just say to them, 'Hey, if you like what you do, you'll never work another day in your life,' they'll respond to that." And he was right. From that day, which is something we all as coaches should be aware that we can learn things from our players as well. I use that as my opener to my team, and got a much better response to it. You know, I think the next pillar is, you know, you as a coach, you have to be a leader. Now, many people question or have questions on what does that mean to be a leader, and is that something that you can learn? Is that something that you're born with? And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not sure. I'm not sure to this day. I don't know that there's a leadership gene. I do know that if you yourself are willing to be the example, that if you yourself are the guy that works the hardest, that gives the most of himself, that holds himself to the highest of standards, I think that's the kind of leadership that players and the people that work for you are looking for. You know, and part of that, of course, is never giving up, people. You know, you again, and I say this because it's the reality of the world that we live in. You know, there's tough times in this business. There's tough times in our profession, and that's true for coaches. It's true for players. It's true for teams. You know, there are times that you know you feel like you can't overcome. You're lost. Or you've had losses, and you know you just feel you can't go forward. But that, you know, that's when you have to have the attitude of simply never giving up. You know, it's such a big part of what we do. You know, the easy thing is always to give up. You know, and of course, once you've done that, you're gone. There's no chance. But the hard thing is to face it, to face the music, to face the challenge, to continue to pound the rock, and never to give up and never to give in. That's an easy thing to say. It's a tough thing to do, and I know it. I've been through it. Believe me, I've had a wonderful, wonderful run in the business, thanks to the great people that I've worked with. But I've had more than my share of disappointments. And I've found, just like after losing a game and self-evaluating and self-critiquing and looking for ways to fix it, I think the same thing holds true when you experience a failure or a loss or a kind of a disappointment, that you use that as a motivator. You use that as the basis for going forward. You know, I've long believed, and I really think it's true. You know, when you hit rock bottom, there's only one way to go, and that's up. And you got to make that a motivating factor for yourself. The last part about coaching, which I think is just so critical, good people, is you got to be a human being. You know, you got to have a sense of ethos and pathos towards the people that are working with you. You got to find ways to lead them with a true kind of emotion, and that emotion is caring. You know, you got to care about the people that you're coaching, that you're working with. They have to feel that you have an interest in parts of them that goes just beyond whether they can shoot a layup or make a free throw. You know, obviously that's bottom line when it comes to the game itself. But to develop the sort of loyalty and the sort of commitment that you should and have the right to ask for in terms of the standards that you call for, you know, people need to feel that you really care about what happens to them, and I think that's underlooked and undervalued so often in our profession, and that shouldn't happen. You know, you got to be willing to go the extra mile for the people that are working with you, because they'll give you back to you with interest. Understand that different players and different people have different needs because they are different, and you thinking that you can talk to each and every person in the same way, it's not realistic. You know, different people are going to respond to different things. Now, you have the right to expect certain things, and certainly to hold people accountable and ask for certain responsibility, which we'll talk about in a moment. But you know, you just may not be able to go about it in exactly the same way with each and every person. And that's why it's so important that you're a human being before you're a coach. The next element is chemistry. And when I talk about chemistry, I'm thinking about something that I read in a wonderful book by Rudyard Kipling, The Jungle Book, many of you know it, as a book or as a movie, and of course from there comes the great quote, the power of the wolf is the pack, and the power of the pack is the wolf. And in holding all to the same set of high standards and holding all accountable and expecting a level of responsibility for each and every person, although you can do it in different ways, this is what sort of develops team chemistry. I can tell you over my many years in coaching, the best kinds of coaches and leaders that I had in my organization were the players themselves. If they could, hopefully because of their experience or because of their character or because of their quality, but if they could coach one another by holding themselves to a certain level of responsibility and accountability, that created great chemistry in our teams. And you have to understand that some will do more in certain areas of the game, and others will do less, and that's normal. That is not a bad thing. Roles and developing roles in the team, they're not limitations, not at all. They're avenues for promoting the value of each and every person in your organization. And I think that's the way that you really, really got to go about it. And it's important that you emphasize and that you promote all different kinds of contributions. That develops chemistry. That develops the sort of feeling that you want to have amongst your the members in your team. Every team or organization, I always talk about rules. I'm gonna give you my opinion about rules. Okay. I think building true trust and confidence in one another's level of commitment, in one another's effort level, in one another's willingness to sacrifice for the good of the team and promote and represent respect and tolerance and loyalty and togetherness. These are the things that give you the feeling of being that one unit of as an organization and as a group. You can do more with less than is expected. Finally, culture. The culture is your way as an organization of doing things, and you want to try to build a first-class organization from top to bottom, from your equipment manager to your leading scorer. That it's critical that you have that sort of trust and appreciation in all, in order to create the first class type of approach and the first class type of team that you want to be. Having standards and habits that all adhere to, not by order or decree, but by recognition of proper sports etiquette, really, really gives you a huge leg up. I like to think about the concept of competitive stamina. Can you every day compete in the same way? Do you have the type of conditioning from a mental and emotional and from a physical standpoint that you need to face every battle, to face every difficult, to face every challenge. That competitive stamina really, really is embedded in the culture, or should be embedded in the culture of your entire organization. You know, humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking about yourself less. And if that's part of the culture of your organization, man, you got a chance to really, really be good. Because there's nothing wrong with a little bit of ego. There's nothing wrong with people thinking that they're good, or that they're valuable, or that they're important. Those are good things, you know. But what you don't want are people who are thinking about things only for their own benefit and not in terms of the good of the team. Okay. I love this quote, and I want you to think about it. Being irresponsible is not neutral. When you are irresponsible for what you do, it makes someone else responsible for what you've been irresponsible about. And that needs to be in the culture of your organization. That's a central part of the message that you have to pass on, and a central element in creating the culture for who you are as a team. And this is a team sport, and that's awfully important. Building a high trust culture is more about control than building a rules-based culture. If you don't trust people, you can't come up with enough rules. Don't let 5% of the people you don't trust define the 95% of the people that you do. So in your team and in your organization, you're always going to find outliers, or more than 5% if you brought in a group of people that don't have character and aren't committed to the kind of excellence that you're looking for, and don't take to coaching, don't believe in the importance of being tolerant and respectful of those around them. You know, you're going to have problems with your culture. But if you do have, you know, the greater majority of your people thinking and feeling that way, you don't need to make a big thing about specific rules, because they're going to do that by themselves. They're going to understand what it takes. They're going to place a high value on that. And that will really give you a great chance to building a successful and a sustainable type of program. You know, I've talked a fair amount. I do want to share with you one more slide. This is kind of a bonus because, you know, I've obviously been very philosophical in talking about team building, but I wanted to give you something for your record for specifics that's more specific to the game itself. So I'm going to share this with you. Before I do, well, here it is. That's fine. In front of over the top of my desk, and every team that I ever worked on, I always placed this page at eye level so I could look at it every morning when I came in to work. And when I talked about committing to excellence, started with myself. I was always the first, or tried to be always the first guy in the gym. Of course, my assistants used to try to challenge me on that and get in the office before I did. They rarely succeeded, but certainly was a healthy competition. But I always wanted to be the first guy in the gym, and I wanted to be the last guy to leave. And that's something I wanted my players to see on a daily basis. So if after practice they wanted to talk about something, I was there. If before practice they wanted to come in and kick it around me, I was there. If my assistants wanted to know if I was working hard enough to deserve the type of success that we were looking for, they would see it. Specific to expectations, you know, I always believe that you can't expect perfect performance, but you can expect and you should expect perfect effort. Success in basketball and in the game, it starts with defense, because offense is not always something. Offense is fickle. Defense is something that you can depend on a daily basis. And the 7 C's of defense, which I learned from other places, I didn't make this up myself, but it's something that I focused on every single day. Was our ability to get back and cover fast break, to be able to control our man on a one-on-one basis, to compete. It says complete. That's my mistake. I'm sorry. Should be compete for position, gain a meter everywhere you can on the floor, to contest shots without leaving your feet or being the second guy off the floor, to cover. In other words, to offer help to our teammate. I got mine and I got yours too if you need my help. To chase, which is to hunt loose balls, 50-50 balls, rebounds, and then to convert and go on the other way. We always talked about forcing perimeter catches further than the expected for our opponent, and denying easy low post catches. Communication is such a critical part. ELC, early, loud, and continuous. Our ability to talk to one another and to help one another to understand what needs to be done and where we are on the floor is such a critical element in your defensive philosophy. Everybody's got a box out, and everybody got a rebound because we've got to finish the job. Great defense is not about just controlling contesting. You got to finishing the job by getting the ball. That's a critical factor. Converting, which is about the first 3 steps, and this is something we often would show and work on in our scouting sessions, just to see how quickly, once we had the ball, we were getting out and getting up. In 3 steps, the first 3 steps is that a player takes and makes are the ones that are going to win that battle in transition. We really focused on running hard and running wide and running for layups, and particularly in today's game, looking for uncontested threes with at least one rebounder in the paint or under the basket. I don't like and never liked, and this has become, unfortunately, less of a popular view. I never liked to allow 3-point shots if nobody was in position to perhaps get a rebound. Many people will argue with that today, but that's okay. Like I said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Movement of the ball and bodies is so important because the ball does have energy. I'm sure you've all heard that before, but it's true and critical. Moving the ball from side to side so as to break the system or the concept of the other team's defense, and move around the floor and not be able to lock in or create overhelp. Such an important factor in your offense, as is spacing, keeping 3 to 4 meters between each player. I've always been a big believer that in paint touches and often, not often, but consistently would count the number of times that the ball went into the paint, whether it would be passing in the post or whether it be dribble penetration or things of that nature. But the ball touching the paint before we shoot really I always felt gave us a great chance to be successful offensively. You got to put pressure on the rim via fast break, via post entry, via dribble penetration. And you really want to be a good offensive rebounding team with balance and discipline. In other words, you want to rebound offensively from the right spots on the floor. I never liked guys running in from above the foul line, for example, to go and chase an offensive rebound because I thought that made us vulnerable running back on defense. And other people maybe have different philosophies, but that's how we did it. And, you know, and finally, just like I think it's so important in life that you're the same person every day. I think that as a team, you are what you do every day. You know, consistency is so important, and habits are so critical. And that type of approach every day, in every way, on every play, I really think that carries the day. Okay, I've talked a lot, and I sure hope some of this was helpful for you, or you can use some pieces and parts in terms of your own coaching philosophy. I am, you know, certainly not one to tell you that this is the only way, but it's been a thrill sharing some of my ideas with you, and I'd love to answer any questions for you that I can.